In this video, we'll give you 8 wide receivers we like in 2024 fantasy redraft leagues. I'm Jim Coventry along with Anthony Cervino of RotoWire.
Jim, the first wide receiver I like going into redraft season, Garret Wilson, New York Jets. And I was all in last year, and I'm going to buy back in this year. Garret Wilson last season, it wasn't on him that he did not live up to the hype. The New York Jets, they were all in on Aaron Rodgers. He obviously gets hurt a few seconds into the season, and Garret Wilson once again finishes outside the top 30 wide receivers in fantasy points per game. A big reason why. Catchable target rate and target quality rate. He was one of the worst wide receivers in that category. Once again, not his fault. Now we cue in a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And what I like even more about this upcoming situation is the fact that they brought in Tyrod Taylor. If Aaron Rodgers was to miss time, Tyrod Taylor can step in and lead this offense. He's a much better passer than anything the New York Jets had on the roster in the Garret Wilson era, which goes back 2 years. Garret Wilson has it all. Former top 10 pick in the NFL draft, outstanding workout metrics coming out of college. The issue is the quarterback. And if that quarterback situation improves the way I think it will this year, and if you look at all of the other boxes that were checked off, and the big one was the offensive line, the Jets drastically upgraded their offensive line unit, which is only going to help Aaron Rodgers stay upright more. I think Garret Wilson not only bounces back, but he has a breakout year in fantasy football.
My first receiver I like in 2024 drafts, I'm drafting in that latter part of the first round, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Brown has had 2 fantastic years with the Eagles, averaging 96 catches, 1,476 yards, and 9 touchdowns. There are not many players that have that level of production over a 2-year period. And last year, Brown was on pace for nearly 2,000 yards about halfway through the season, and then it all fell apart. But it wasn't Brown's fault. The offense could no longer figure out adjustments that defenses made against them. I don't know if it's Nick Sirianni, the head coach, Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator, but teams started putting a shell over the top, and all of a sudden the Eagles had no more answers. Well, in comes Kellen Moore, and Kellen Moore will start by going downfield, but he also builds an underneath attack. A.J. Brown will be used all over the field. Brown should see around 150 targets. He will see a variety of routes. He may not see enough targets to be the overall wide receiver one, but in his current situation, do not be surprised if A.J. Brown finishes in the top 5 wide receivers.
Jim, the next wide receiver I like going into redraft season, Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons, and similar to Garret Wilson, Drake London, since he's been in the NFL, it has not been an ideal situation with the offensive coordinator or the quarterback, but that changes this year. We cue in Zach Robinson at OC. We cue in Kirk Cousins under center. And just those 2 improvements right there. We've seen guys in the recent past like DJ Moore, he goes to a new situation, new quarterback, and all of a sudden we get that breakout year a few years into his career. Now I expect the same thing with Drake London. Now, London, last year, wide receiver 37 and wide receiver 42 in points per game. We are drafting Drake London possibly at his ceiling, where right now he is going as the wide receiver 10 off the board. This is a big risk to take, but I am willing to take this risk because we know in the past with Kirk Cousins, he can support elite level fantasy producing wide receiver ones. And that's a big reason why I am buying in on Drake London for the first time since he's been drafted to the Falcons.
The next receiver I like in 2024 redraft leagues is Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. And yes, I get it. Derek Carr is his quarterback. Yes, it's a problem. However, Derek Carr did work with Devontae Adams when Adams had a 1,500-yard season in Las Vegas, so Carr can support a superstar. Now, one of the problems last year was Pete Carmichael was running the offense, and Olave was running too many what we call go routes, just straight down the field, predictable quarterback play on those was a bit of an issue. In comes Clint Kubiak. Now, Kubiak's father, Gary Kubiak, ran an offensive system a long time ago. Clint Kubiak understands that system. One of the main premises of that is a lot of play action, and that'll keep some pressure off of Derek Carr, who is hypersensitive to that. The other thing that offense does is it really focuses on that alpha receiver on short routes, some crossers. Olave will have a much more expanded role. Do not be surprised to see Olave go over 150 targets this year. Olave can also line up in the slot if needed. 44% of his targets last year were in the slot. That versatility really helps. Now, last year, Olave did have 100 yards in the first 3 games. He averaged 100 yards in the first 3 games, I should say. And Derek Carr, though, he was beat up a lot last year. Head and neck injuries, multiples of those. Now, whenever Olave saw 9 or more targets, and that was 11 times, there was only 1 game he didn't hit 86 yards. So we already know when he gets the ball, he can produce. And as I said, in the Clint Kubiak offense, I fully expect Olave to see all the targets he can handle, and he is the type of player with the routes he'll run. The pressure on Carr won't be as much of an issue. Now, if you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed. You just go to rotowire.com/Jim to see all of our content.
Jim, my next wide receiver I like going into redraft season, George Pickens, Pittsburgh Steelers, another third-year receiver that I love. I think he's poised for a breakout. In the past, George Pickens has flashed superstar skill set. He ranked wide receiver 13 in half-point PPR during games without Deontay Johnson. Now he is going to get a quarterback upgrade. It's expected to be Russell Wilson, but even if it's Justin Fields, I think either one of those guys are much better passers than he's had in his first 2 years in the NFL. Now, another note, during Deontay Johnson's absence with George Pickens, Pickens had a 26% target share in those games and averaged 17 PPR points in 4 games last season without Deontay. And we know Deontay Johnson is no longer on this team. He's with the Carolina Panthers. George Pickens, 10th in deep targets. That's the best thing he does. He can go deep. And we know that Russell Wilson is an excellent passer of the football downfield. Last year, George Pickens had 5 100-yard games and 1 game over 150 yards, and 6 games that he played, he finished as a wide receiver 2 better, 4 of which were wide receiver 1 weeks. I'm all in on George Pickens, Jim.
The next receiver I like in 2024 redraft leagues is Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns. I know people get nervous, but you need to understand in the 2 years that Cooper's been in Cleveland and significant quarterback issues, Cooper is averaging 75 catches, 1,205 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Those are numbers that are second-round fantasy type numbers, yet Cooper is going in 12-team leagues commonly in the 5th round. Now, even with those averages Cooper's put up, he did miss a couple games last year. He's usually healthy, but those numbers were even potentially a little bit higher. Now, Deshaun Watson, that's the big question. People are worried, what will Cooper do with Deshaun Watson? Do not worry. Last year, Cooper played 5 games with Watson. In 4 of those games, Cooper was over 90 yards. And there was only 1 of those games he saw double-digit targets. So Cooper did not have to be force-fed to be very productive. That said, Cooper just got money added to his contract for this year. So there's no more strife. He was a little bit concerned with that. Cooper is going into his age 30 season, but he has shown no signs of slowing down. We should get 1 more year of peak value. Take the value in drafts and select Amari Cooper.
Jim, my last receiver I like going into fantasy redraft season, Mcconkey, rookie wide receiver, Los Angeles Chargers. And Mcconkey is a second-round draft pick, second-round draft capital now, who projects as a possession receiver who could play the slot or on the outside. Now, we know that this team had departures of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen averaged 10.2 targets per game over the last 3 seasons with Justin Herbert. If Mcconkey even comes close to that, he will excel with Justin Herbert in this offense. Now, what I project for Ladd McConkey, he could potentially see north of 120 targets in this offense. Well, why? I know that Harbaugh and Greg Roman, they're known to want to run the football and play good defense. That's going to be a work in progress. This defense is certainly a work in progress. And if they are playing from behind, they're going to have to throw the football. They're not going to be able to run the football and score points with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins if they are trailing by 2 possessions, which is a real possibility because I don't have a ton of belief in this defense in year 1. So I expect Justin Herbert and this offense to pass a lot more than other people do, which means there will be opportunities for Ladd McConkey to produce. And once again, departures of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Gerald Everett. There is way too many vacated targets to not buy in to Ladd McConkey.
The last receiver I like in 2024 redrafts leagues is Jaxon Smith-Njigba of the Seattle Seahawks. Last year was tough for the rookie. Last year we had Shane Waldron was the offensive coordinator. Pete Carroll was the head coach. Some veteran deference. There were 2 good veterans there. I mean, DK Metcalf's a star. Tyler Lockett, very good. Smith-Njigba saw almost 150 less snaps than his other 2 receivers. Also, he was very misused. Smith-Njigba was a 7th percentile average depth of target, so he saw no distance on his passes. All that said, to talk about Smith-Njigba, we have to start with Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett will be 32 early this season. Last year, Tyler Lockett may have put up 894 yards and 5 touchdowns, and that may seem impressive, but the 122 targets was among the most that Lockett had seen. Only 16th percentile was Tyler Lockett in yards after the catch. He is a declining player. A new coaching staff, Ryan Grubb is there now, is going to quickly see. They have the young first-round draft pick on the ascent versus the aging veteran. Smith-Njigba should be the clear number 2 in this offense. In addition, Ryan Grubb comes in, and I don't always like rookie coaches coming in from the college ranks. But that said, they got rid of Colby Parkinson. They got rid of Will Dissly, the 2 tight ends. This should be a 3-receiver offense base spread out. That's going to be great for Smith-Njigba in a league that plays 73% zone. Smith-Njigba could get open very quickly, very easily, and in those zones, he should thrive. So look for Smith-Njigba to be a huge breakout player in 2024.